Okay, good afternoon everyone.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the first BME Network meeting of 2018. Very warm welcome to you all. Just quickly introduce the BME group for those of you who have not attended one of these before. We set up last year as a BME Network under the Staff Voices umbrella, which includes the LGBT, Disability and Carers and the BME Network. And so all three groups working together. This is the third meeting of the BME network in its new form. And today we're very honoured to see so many people and so many new faces as well. And especially honoured to have with us a very special guest, Rob Neal, OBE, which was just added to his name recently in the New Year's Honours list. So very privileged to have Rob, and Rob is the head of Project Race at the Ministry of Justice. So Rob is here to share some of his own experiences and how the civil services race strategy has worked out. So just a little bit about Rob. So Rob was born in London, has been a civil servant for 34 years. He began his career as a clerical officer with the Lord Chancellor's office before progressing to work in regional IT and then National HR office. And Rob has spent the past 17 years working in diversity and inclusion as a qualified trainer and HR practitioner. Rob has recently been recognised, as I mentioned, for his hard work with an OBE. And before I hand over to Rob, we'll see another very special guest, the Chairman of the Council, Alison Bucknell, to do opening words and welcome everyone to the group. And also just to mention, for those of you who aren't aware, Alison is our equalities champion. So, thank you very much.
I don't really know what there's left to say because he sent me this script, and I think you've said most of it, haven't you, Wally? Wally, as Wally said, I am the volunteer equalities champion for the council, and I'm delighted actually to see the way that the new forums are taking place. They've been going for some time, but actually a lot of, in the past it's been very much more sort of inward looking, and I'm really delighted now that we're actually starting to tackle issues and having these guest speakers along to try and share with people some of the good practice that's going on and the way other people are addressing some of the equality issues as well. It's not an easy county to sort of look at equality stuff because we're so dispersed as well. So we don't have any large communities to work with, which always makes it more challenging. So working with our staff here and people who actually are here as interested parties that maybe don't tick that box in any way, shape or form, but actually it's great that we've got people who are coming along because they have an interest in equalities and inclusion rather than actually being in that category themselves. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. I'm really pleased that we have some more councillors here with us today, and very welcome to people that haven't been along before, and thank you very much for coming. I hope you find it interesting. We'll actually put the next events in your diary as soon as they come up and you see them advertised. So anyway, enough from me. You're not here to listen to me, you're here to listen to the main act here, so here we go.
Yes. Thank you very much. And just to thank you for that, Alison. Thank you. Oh, you just met Alison, but the wealth of information already in terms of the wonderful space you've got out there. I could listen to you all day. Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to thank Wally and Theo. Actually, we bumped into each other at EY in London, and something about our exchange, our first meeting, something clicked, and both Theo and Wally came up to me after and said, Rob, you've got to come to this event we're planning for next year. And the moment they said the date, the 11th of January, I was reminded that it's actually my daughter's birthday. So there's a bit of a hurdle to get over there, wasn't there? But I begged and begged and begged, pleaded with her, took some pictures of her this morning. She's already chat-snapped or Snapchat or Instagram, whatever the younger people do. And she's happy enough. And we're going to have a bit of a soiree on Saturday. But we got over that hurdle, didn't we? And I'm here. The other reason I'd like to mention both Theo and Wally at this stage and to thank them in plenary is to say that if, after I finish, in roughly about 53 minutes time? Sounds long, doesn't it? Unless I'm heckled or booed off, so I'll go. I'm polite that way. I'm nothing if not obedient. If afterwards you think, well, that's a load of rubbish, blame them. I wouldn't even know you existed unless I got invited here. So thanking all of you really for arresting your busy schedules, for being here. Please be prepared for the next 40 or so minutes. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end, but feel free to dive in and ask at any point, because I intend to challenge, provoke, prod a little, support and commend absolutely, but to perhaps shine a light on some of the practices in this territory we now lovingly refer to as diversity and inclusion, whatever that might be. But let me start here with a couple of questions, just to get things going. So, how old am I?
35.
You've not Googled me? Who wants to hazard a guess then? How old am I?
35.
35? Okay. Which would mean I started as a civil servant when I was 1. Yeah.
Because you are much clever.
Yeah. Possibly. It feels like I'm 1 sometimes. But no, it's a bit higher than that. Was your guess 35 actually? What's your name?
Eva Raiso.
Avaraiso? Eva?
Raiso.
Raiso. Eva Raiso. Well, thank you for that guess, because if you take the 2 digits and swap them around, you'll get my age. I am in fact 53, absolutely. And so it is 34 years as a civil servant. I'm 53 years old. I have 2 children. My daughter's 25, my son's 20, and I've been married for 27 years. I'm truly blessed. I walk in faith. I believe that all things are possible through Christ. And I talk about that. I talk about that and all other bits of me in schools, universities, and across the civil service, increasingly. And so, when I share through that lens. I share through my experience. I share as a product of my experience, as indeed we all do. So when I talk about, in my trained and skilled craft, around bias, whether it be unconscious, as is commonly popular, or indeed conscious bias, I speak through my experience as a black man working in the civil service. Now, Theo and Wally will know this because they checked me out and they've heard me speak before. But I've been black as a civil servant. I've been black for the last 25 years. You see, before that, those 9 years before, I was colourless. I was without a colour. I truly believed in my heart of hearts that to progress, to maximise my potential, all I needed to do was to try my very hardest and compete against any rival, no matter their hue, but just be the best. And it began to dawn on me, about 10 years in, that people who I had trained were coming past me and landing jobs that I was going for. And none of those people looked like me. I mean, some of them were all right, don't get me wrong. Some of my best friends are, oh, steady. But at the end of the day and the process, I wasn't getting on. You see, the civil service is built on possibly the biggest doctrine that there is in organisational development, but that meritocracy is what we do around here. And the sad reality is, and it's wonderful to hear about the marriage of your networks, your different strands of diversity, your different diversity characteristics. It's wonderful, it doesn't always happen. It's wonderful to hear about that here. But the reality is that for many underrepresented groups, meritocracy is a myth. Meritocracy is something that we aspire to, that we wish we did have. The truth of the matter is that it doesn't exist, really. And I'm here to say that after my years of experience. So I've put some slides together. Be something of an interactive talk as we go through. And I'm hoping that you are suitably, appropriately provoked, challenged, but supported and encouraged by what I've got to say. So the strapline, which isn't quite coming up here for us because of the colour, is about lessons from my journey in the civil service and an evolving race strategy. This is my very first speaking engagement with that OBE. Very first one. Yes, give yourselves a round of applause. Absolutely. Very first one. Whatever history goes on to say, this was my first speaking engagement. Rob Neal, OBE. I have to tell you, when I told my mother, my dear mother, when I told my mother that I'll be in the New Year's honours list, it was literally about an hour before the embargo was lifted. You're sworn to secrecy, you can't tell anybody. She was stunned. She was absolutely stunned, as was I when I opened the letter. And when she came out of that stunned feeling, she shouted, "Can I go buy me hat?" She'll be at the palace later on. It's March or April, we don't know when, but we'll be going along to collect that. With my daughter and with my wife. My son's not bothered. He said, I don't care. It's hard work, honestly. It's hard work. A brilliant civil service. Anyone familiar with the slogan, the mantra? Very quickly, a quadrant to the right half here. A brilliant civil service is a campaign that's been launched about a year in now, but we're looking for improved outcomes, effective leaders, skilled people, and making it a great place to work. Now, depending on who you talk to, some people would like to present the civil service as a brilliant civil service now, and there are parts of the civil service that are brilliant. There are parts of the civil service that are at the vanguard of what we are as a group of people, public servants looking to deliver a service to people in the community. But the reality is that in many parts we're not. I like to talk about a brilliant civil service as us being on a journey to becoming. And if we get some of the things right that I'm going to talk about, that I'm going to allude to, I think we can get there. I am optimistic. A critical friend, but I'm optimistic. Because here's what I'd like to say to each of you. Because what I'd like to speak to at the minute, through the lens of race, and race equality, there are some common and shared ground, but I'd like to talk through the lens of race and race equality for the next few minutes, is about some of the limiting beliefs that we can sometimes adopt for ourselves. We did some work at the Ministry of Justice prior to launching Project Race, which I will talk about, and we came up with and found evidence around some of this. The system, the organisation, will never want someone like me to succeed, was a thought. I do not deserve success. I need to regularly remind myself that I belong. I am challenged on a daily basis by my hierarchy of needs. And if you're familiar with Maslow, will know what I'm talking about there. Yeah? This hierarchy of needs, I am daily challenged by. My manager is the best judge of my ability or deployment. This notion, this idea through command and control, through hierarchical structure, that the person who will decide whether I'm promotable or not is the person who sits above me. Invariably, because of the challenges in some of our demographic makeup, that person is of a different culture, often to the BAME, the Black, Asian, minority ethnic member of staff. But they are the best person to decide whether I am good enough for promotion. Where does that come from? What am I good at anyway? If every day you're told that it's not quite right, that you're not quite good enough, that you're temperamental, or you're too angry, or you've got a chip on your shoulder, or something, I'm not quite good enough. If I challenge my manager, I won't ever get promotion. Your cards are marked. Your cards are marked. I remember once being hauled into a room privately, one-on-one chat with my manager, totally unannounced. I could see he was very, very angry. He was angry because I proposed an idea that had gone down well and it wasn't his. And he screwed up a bit of paper he had in his hand. He threw it at me and he said, "Now listen to me. Not only are you coloured, you are younger than me. Get out there and get on with your work." I am indelibly marked. Indelibly marked. I should have worked this out by now. I cannot earn a living doing something I like. If I stop wanting, I'll never be disappointed. These are actual comments from BAME members of staff through a focus work group activity that we had. We need to stop. We need to stop and realise that we are truly magnificent people. We are people capable of great things, brilliant things, outstanding things. And we can do this. We really can. I'm not expecting you to read all of that. I just want to set the frame, because one of the things that is now increasingly talked about, not so much 5, 6, 7 years ago going back, is about EQ. It's about emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and read your own heart. It's about those component parts: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. How in touch are you with yourself? How aware are you? Anyone here done Myers-Briggs? Myers-Briggs, a couple of hands gone in the air. Do you know, it's 4 indicators, isn't it? 4 indicators, do you remember? Do you know, remember the first one is? Anyone remember what the first indicator is? They're all introvert or extrovert. So whether you've got a preference for extroversion or introversion, yeah? Which one do you think I am? Right, thank you, Tony. So, I have a very strong preference, nice one. I have a very strong preference for extroversion. It's split across 36 points. And I scored, on my last occasion, I've done it about 7 or 8 times, on my last occasion I scored 34-2. The practitioner says to me afterwards, said, "Rob, can you stay behind?" I said, "I haven't heard that since school." "Rob, can I stay behind for a moment? I'd like to have a word." And so everyone went out, about 8 or 9 delegates, and he said, Rob, please, this is extraordinary. 34-2. Please, tell me there must be some occasions when you just want to be on your own. Just to reflect, to read a book, just to take it in on your own. And I said to the practitioner, "Why would I want to deprive someone else?" But 34-2 is true. I scored 34-2. I get my energy from people. I love opportunities like this. Not just to talk, but to study commensurate with my vision and aim, and to impart if I can. So Myers-Briggs has me down as an extrovert. It means I get my energy from people. My brother, younger by 2 years, he went to Warwick University, got a first in economics and politics. I say that because I didn't go to uni. He is academically brilliant, and he's clever. He's an introvert. He lives on his own to this day. He has no children, by choice. And he once said to me, "That's the difference between me and you. I don't need people." Okay, Ken, okay. I do. And so, if you want to see me wither and die, just put me in an office. When we went open plan, it was the greatest thing ever for me. I thought I'm going to live forever. And so, I make the point there because it's important that you understand yourself. It is important. The most important thing I do, as I mentioned, a number of talks in schools and colleges, and I say to younger people, and I have to young adults now myself, I say that it is very important. It's absolutely important that you do your best in these exams. But even more important, while education is free, certainly up until university, relatively speaking, it's free. I know there's a cost. I need to be aware of that with this audience. But of course there's a cost to education. But it's free to the individual that you spend the time to work out who you are. To work out who you are. To work out the company you keep, where you spend your discretionary time and effort, and how you live and travel with your values, and not be dictated to by others who may have other motives. Yeah? The Bible talks in terms of yoke and fellowship, and being sure and discerning, and having that discerning spirit. And I think that's really important. And I think it's absolutely applicable to this journey that a lot of us are on in equality and diversity, and working for what's right, and delivering what's right, and doing the right thing, and having the courage of our conviction, and bringing it right back to race equality and speaking through the lens of race, if we are not employing, promoting, or encouraging black members of staff, why is that not happening? Why is that happening? Are we truly saying that BAME staff, black Asian minority staff, are good enough to hold these positions? Is that what we're saying? What is at play here, really? What is preventing us delivering on that economically active population in our demographic staff setup through all the levels in the organisation? So, I want us to keep emotional intelligence in mind, because the case for race equality is clear. 12.5% of the working age population are BAME, black, Asian and minority ethnic, and by 2051 this will increase to at least 21%. As an ethnically representative employer, the civil service is not where it needs to be. We all agree that more needs to be done to be a truly brilliant and inclusive civil service. Now, you will know your figures better than I, yeah? Some more statistics, because the important thing, as I've gotten older as a civil servant, I used to major and focus on the anecdotal evidence, the story, the personal story. We've all got them, we all carry them. We may not want to articulate them at times, we may not choose to articulate them at times, but we've all got a personal journey. And the anecdotal evidence is with us 24/7, it's there. And what we've brought to the fore in the Ministry of Justice, through the project, right up to the Permanent Secretary, are those personal stories, those powerful stories, those potent stories. We've had those moments of real revelation for very senior people to say racism exists in our organisation. Now, but what we must have alongside the anecdotal evidence is the empirical evidence. Some people work only on the empirical evidence. They ignore the anecdotal evidence. They say it's a one-off. Or you just, well, when that line manager said that to you, you just have a personality clash. No, I didn't. He's racist. But Rob, we can't deal with individual cases. Okay, let me get some evidence for you. Let me get some empirical evidence for you. Let me show you that year on year, we are not delivering on race equality because we don't have brave leaders taking the right decisions to do what's needed. We've created something called the Civil Service Race Forum. Just over a year ago, I was elected as chair. You can check us out here. We've got an internet website. We've also got a page on the Civil Service homepage.gov.uk. And what we are, ostensibly, are the networks, the BAME staff networks from different government departments. We've all come together on Planet Network to create. Our strapline's unity is strength. And what we do is we bring those voices. We bring and articulate, we amplify the voice and experience of black, Asian management staff. Because here's what I'm saying in essence, and this is a major point I want to say today. It is no longer appropriate, indeed it is offensive, to have a room full of well-meaning white people deciding what happens to black people. That must stop. That's what I'm here to say. I did say I would be provocative. Hear me out. It is no longer appropriate. Indeed, it is offensive to have a room full of well-meaning white people deciding what happens to black people. Now, if anyone's uncomfortable with my binary there, please hear what I'm saying. Remember my preface. What are we doing to create promotion and elevation and progression for BAME staff? Look at the practices. Look at your procedures. Look at your interview processes. Are your panels full of white men? Are they? I don't know. I'm asking the question. I'm just showing you a picture. What's wrong with the picture? I feel like Inspector Gould. I think I've got this one right. What have I? Thank you, sir. What's your name?
Steve.
Stephen. I'm quoting from
Inspector Court.
an Inspector Court. Absolutely. And what does Inspector Gould do?
He takes apart the Burling family.
He does. Just one by one, isn't he?
Yeah.
By showing them a picture. What's interesting, what's interesting is he shows them each picture just separately, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He doesn't show them all at the same time. So my point here is, what are you really doing? Now you will probably know yourself. You will probably know in your quiet, private moments. You'll probably know whether you're doing enough or not. My question is, what are you doing collectively to ensure that your panels are diverse, that your applications are coming in from all parts of the community, and that you have got intrinsic owners of the issue in the room where decisions are being made? What are you doing as your own antidote to groupthink? The business imperative behind the Civil Service Based Forum is to do a number of these things. We want to provide a modern internal consultancy to drive race equality forward. Anybody here familiar with the term critical race theory? No? Check it out. Check it out when you've got some time. Google it. Critical race theory talks about, and at its heart, refers to having the intrinsic owners. It's a bit like a room full of men deciding what happens to women. We wouldn't have it now, would we? We've made such strides, such progress, still some way to go. Look at the FTSE 100. There's still not enough women occupying those top positions. Why? Why? Not good enough. But I remember when we were having this issue in representation in the House of Commons, we designed female-only slates for candidacy, didn't we? Well, I'm just saying, what sauce for the goose? We need to look at our practices, because I'll tell you this much, and this is what I know for sure. This is what I know. One of the things I know for sure, there's not many, but one of the things I know for sure is that osmosis alone will not heal us. If we're waiting for time to cure this, it would have done it by now. It would have done it by now. Yeah? With no offence intended, absolutely none intended. The power structures in this country are predominantly white, male, middle class. We need to pay full-on attention to that. If you're interested beyond this talk about what you can do about it, check out a website called The Colour of Power. It's recently launched. The Colour of Power looks at how Britain's power bases are divided up. Is it Danny? Darren. Thank you, Darren. I think you'll be particularly interested in this website, given the work you've done. Just have a look at it. The Colour of Power. So what are the challenges and risks? Well, the challenges and risks are race disparities continue to be tolerated across government. Now, we've just had some excellent work done with the race disparity audit. Yeah, it's been published now, 35 recommendations. Actually, its home is the Ministry of Justice. I'm working with some people now about how we can influence some of the way forward and fit a real gearbox to what needs to happen next so that we can get real traction as we travel. Because we know there'll be turbulence, right? Yeah. We know that people aren't just go, oh yeah, come on in, yeah, absolutely. This will be a game changer. Yeah? But some of the challenges and risks include some of these. A lack of senior level commitment to achieve race equality. Yeah? Have we got real support at the very top of the council for delivering on race equality? I'm leaving it there. I'm just leaving it there. A lack of resource investment to achieve race equality and equity. Again, different organisations, different councils have different structures. But is it a case in point that for a black staff network to really do its thing, to really do its thing, it needs resource? One member of staff maybe for half the week, each week. Or a bit of money to put some stuff together. Or a bit of consultancy. Or some kind of resource. If it matters, measure it. If it really matters, invest in it. Don't tell me you love me. Show me you love me. Yeah? Yeah. Enough. Enough. We can't. All this hubris and sophistry about, it's terrible. It's something within critical race theory, by the way, if you do follow up, it's something called empathic fallacy. So many people pretending to care. But when they go home to their comfortable default, and we work hard to make our homes comfortable, nothing wrong with that, how much diversity is there really in how you live your life? Really? It's a question for you each to take away. How much diversity is there really? In your diet, in the food you eat, the company you keep, the films you watch, the music you listen to. How much diversity is there really? How much light and space is there to open up and really empathise with a different experience? Part of the work we're doing at Project Race is to go around the entire Ministry of Justice and have conversations about race. It's to have conversations about why it's wrong to call me coloured. What do you mean, Rob? You're not black, really. You're more coloured. Well, you're not really white. But what is that about? What is that about? Asking the question and having the courage to sit and listen to the answer. Of BAME talent, which will only exacerbate the challenge. You know, we did some research again just before we launched the project into the numbers of people leaving on what we call VEDs, our voluntary early departure, but taking the redundancy, taking the money and running. And if you think back to the very first slide where I showed you on limiting beliefs about how people felt, it's not surprising for me to tell you that disproportionately higher numbers of BAME staff were taking the money and going. And when you spoke to those people leaving, Rob, I'm not sticking around here because I'm not even wanted anyway. Good luck to you if you do stick around, Rob, but I'm going. I'm taking my 11, 12, 13, 14 grand and I'm going to try my luck somewhere else. 40 acres and a mule. 40 acres and a mule. Institutional failure, less than brilliant civil service, and that's the most polite way I can put it. How can we mitigate challenge and risk? Well, again, very quickly, because I want to move to some slides and then invite your questions, is involving intrinsic owners. I've made the point already. Involving intrinsic owners. Consult and advocate for all BAME networks across all grades. This is what CISREP are trying to do. Provide a tangible action plan with key deliverables and accountability. And we want to align all effort with the civil service goals to become a brilliant civil service and becoming that. Here's a quick map for you. There are currently 4 civil service-wide BAME networks. There's the one I've mentioned, chaired by myself, Civil Service Race Forum. There's Race to the Top Civil Service Network, which is the senior civil service, have formed the Black Star. There's a Grade 6, Grade 7 network. Below that level, they formed the network. And then there's a fast stream network. Yeah? Here's the rest of the stakeholder map, including our Chief People Officer, Rupert McNeil, the Head of the Civil Service, Jeremy Haywood, our own Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Justice, Richard Heaton. I got home from my time in Jamaica to find my very first letter with OBE on it. God, are you that Robert? And it was a letter from Richard Heaton. And he's thanked and encouraged me. And I felt good. I don't mind sharing that with you. We're friends now, right? I felt good. And he's also the Civil Service Race Champion. He's also the Civil Service Race Champion. I've had many a conversation with Richard over the past 3 years. And I say to Richard, both privately and on occasion like this, is that Richard has been fantastic in clearing the runway for what we're doing on Project Race. Absolutely fantastic. I can't think of another permanent secretary well, I can actually. Claire Moriarty at DEFRA. She's just as progressive. She's fantastic. Check her out on LinkedIn, Claire Moriarty. But Richard is fantastic. He clears the runway. But I've said this to Richard. Richard can't build the planes. Richard can't pilot the planes. For race equality, they must be black people. So I'm going to invite questions in a minute, and I welcome any question you've got at all. Here's what we want to do. You'll have probably detected in my exasperation at there being 4 networks. We want to create a single civil service race coalition. Yeah? A one-stop shop. Let's stop faffing around with all these different parts and, aping our oppressors of having separate silos. Let's get a single coalition in there. Yeah? Let's work with the ethnic diversity programme. Now, my strapline talked about, because I was fed as a briefing, the race strategy. There is no race strategy for the civil service. Yeah? It's an anomaly, it's an anathema. It doesn't exist. What there is an ethnic diversity programme as part of this, the civil service diversity strategy. How long have I been a civil servant? 35 years this year. 35 years. Swap the digits. I'm 53. Yeah. This strategy is the most progressive strategy on this issue that I have ever seen. Ever seen. And the reason I refer to it as the most progressive, for what my word is worth, is it has two main themes. It has a theme around inclusion, which is to ensure you have the intrinsic owners, the intrinsic voices are at the decision-making stage, are in the decision-making spaces. And the second theme it has is around representation. And it has some hard targets about representation. You can get this PDF online, by the way, if you're not familiar. Fantastic strategy. But as I think, is it Peter Drucker who says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Yeah, it's about the people. That's why I like that first theme about inclusion. You know, the one thing, more than one, let's be fair, but one of the things that the civil service is great for are glossy plans and action plans and documents and guidance and strategies and frameworks, and we've got a whole dictionary behind it. You can have the best strategy in the world. If the people don't buy into it, it will fail, which is what Drucker teaches us. You've got to have the people heart and mind. You've got to get around the jurisdiction, whether it's the country, the region, whatever. You've got to get out there and engage people on that. I worked for 8 years in employee engagement. I'm really keen to hear about the staff survey afterwards. If I can stay, I want to hear about the staff survey and feedback. But I did 8 years around employee engagement, and that taught me most of all, when you talk about the four key drivers for engagement, it's about employee voice, it's about engaging leaders, it's about a clear strategic narrative. Were you really going as a council on these things? Have you published that? Do people know what you're trying to achieve on that? And integrity. Say what you're going to do, and do what you say. Check that out if you haven't already. Because as we approach time to listen to questions and take those, Diversity 101 is where a lot of people are at. It's where a lot of people stay. They don't have aspiration beyond it. It's kind of complying with the legal stuff. It's kind of the public sector equality duty. It's the Equality Act 2010. And in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. But what we want to do is move to Diversity 2.0. We want to go even further. Because beyond the ethically inspired champions, events, you know, it's great. You can have events during Black History Month, which is what month? October. But you know, I've got this thing about Black History Month. I've been to a number over the years. Indeed, many schools will invite me in. They can become a bit kind of, a bit steel pan and samosas. You know, it's a bit quite kind of voyeuristic almost. And I like a nice samosa, but it's a bit kind of, you know, it's not really getting to the issue. Nothing wrong with them. Nothing wrong with them. Let's get some cultural exchange going. But it needs to be a bit more. Maybe. You know, I'm happy to sit and talk about that. Let's talk about that. Yeah, but, you know, Rob, it's your history, isn't it? No, it's our history. It's a stain on history, what happened, but it's our history. You were there. And we want to get to Diversity 3.0 because here's the game changer. Really quickly, and forgive me for the speed here, but we're warming up nicely, so I'm just going to whack them all up. I don't know why the wire's dropped off here. But through CISRAC, the Civil Service Race Forum, what we're saying is to change the game in race equality, we want to have accessible data. Yeah? We want to be able to access the data. And the Race Disparity Unit have gone great strides already with phase 1 of their work. Phase 2 is coming along in about 2 months' time. We'll be able to do regional comparison. But there's a lot of great work going on there. So it's a good start. But we want governance and policy that reflect our ambition. So we want black staff networks in different departments to be part of the decision-making process. Not some afterthought, you know, not an organisational burp. We want to be part of the meal. We want to be part of what goes on. The policy must reflect that. There must be accountability. Yeah? If you're going to invest in your staff network, it needs to be aligned with corporate goals, and you need to say, well, how have you done? There needs to be accountability. Yeah. The scrutiny must be in place so that we can check and balance. For too long, civil service has been absolutely famous, infamous, for marking its own homework. Not good enough. We need to invite external assessment. And we need to future-proof what we do. There's more about these game changers on our website if you want to look them up later. I'm going to go out to speak because we'll invite your question. So we need a return on investment, bang for bucks. If it matters, measure it. Track it and publish it. Involve intrinsic owners of the issues. I think I've mentioned those as I've gone through. Project Race, very quickly. This is our campaign, which we had in all the lifts. Big, bold and brave. We want big events, bold facts and brave ideas. We are championing race equality in OJ, a place where you can confidently talk about race. And we're approaching now, I think when I left for my week's leave, we were at 38 thus far in the year. I know there was one while I was away, and there's about 3 planned this month. So we're picking up speed as we go, and it's catchy. People are inviting us in now. People are inviting us in. We produce a dashboard each month that goes up to our Permanent Secretary's office that talks about the latest position on a monthly basis. We've also introduced what's known as a news brief, which looks through the lens of the big, the bold and the brave, the events, the facts. I can unpack some of that if you'd like later. All of this stuff we can email across, by the way, and share with you if you want to see them. Here's a quick snapshot of what our key outputs are. We recruited, first time ever, in the entire civil service. Not just in the MOJ. We're at the vanguard in doing what we do. And I say that because of the fantastic team that works on this. This is not about any one person, least alone me. But what we did was, through an expression of interest campaign, we ran and recruited 30 multi-ethnic race ambassadors. And they work up to 2 days per month on the work of Project Race. And we've trained and we've brought them in centrally. There were in fact 55 applications in 2 weeks for that position, 55. What we've done, in case you're wondering, what about the 25 who didn't make it into the first cohort? They have now become, we've created a term called race allies, and they are on track to becoming, or at least applying to become race ambassadors. So we've captured them as well. Got a race insight group, we'll talk about that if need be. And some of those things I've mentioned. So as I round up, the stop is a reference to those limiting beliefs that I talked about at the very beginning. Limiting beliefs. Know who you are. Know who you are. Understand self. Yeah? I shared with you, didn't I? I get my energy from people. I will forever be, my professional anchor is in human resources. It's in people and people development. That's where my qualification is. In my discretionary time, I work as a counsellor with Relate. I am in my here now as a Relate trustee. And we've done the team and great work there in providing for the borough of Harrow. Because families matter. Family is a bedrock. And too often, families are fractured and it doesn't work out. So know who you are. Know who you are. Be who you are. You know, there's a fantastic report online by Deloitte called Uncovering Talent. It's about this issue called covering. And it talks about people making a decision to be less than who they are. So in the case of race and race equality, it's that black member of staff who acts white, because that's how you're going to get on. Yeah? Some even wear ties. It's covering. It's pretending to be something you're not. And at best, you're second best, right? At best, you're second best. Be who you are. Know who you are, but be who you are. Yeah? Be who you are. What can you do? Well, accept it, you're biased. Examine the context for your decision making and create the right conditions. Discuss diversity and inclusion openly amongst your teams and challenge one another. Challenge one another. Just as hopefully I've challenged some of you. Enable colleagues to be themselves at work. Be authentic. This goes back to be who you are. And be a role model as a leader. Know thyself, be thyself, and look after yourself. I want to end with 2 quotes. Looking after yourself is really important. I was as I would say, blessed, but I was truly honoured to work with the Reverend Jesse Jackson a few years ago. There he is. And I was able to interview him twice, and the interview was published back here in the UK. And the Reverend said to me, he gave me 3 A's. You know, he speaks very poetically, doesn't he? He's not well at the moment. He's just Parkinson's. Yeah. But the Reverend talked about aptitude, altitude, and attitude, 3 A's. And he said this to me: it is not always your aptitude that determines your altitude. Sometimes it is your attitude which determines how far you will go. Because it's heavy on my heart, in a good way, but because it's on my heart, I want to just end with something my father taught me, if I may, and then I'll invite your questions. My dad taught me this when I was growing up as a boy and stepping into manhood. My dad said, when here a task is set for you, don't idle, sit, or view it, nor be content to wish it done. Begin at once and do it. Thank you very much for listening to me. So forgive me if I've overrun. We're back on time?
Yeah.
I love questions if there is time. Anything that I've shared, or anything on your mind, on your heart, anything at all. Yes?
What do you say to people who say what you said is you want quotas?
Okay. I would say this. I have reluctantly reached a position where I think in some spaces, in some industries, quotas is what's going to be needed to get things moving and get things done. I think the law provides for it under genuine occupational requirement, that where there is a measured underrepresentation, we have to design through positive action a system and a process that will deliver on that underrepresentation. I think there's lots to deal with here, not least of which we were target audience saying, I don't want to talk just because I'm black, for example, if we're talking about race. Ironically, I remember a conversation about 6 or 7 years ago with my sister, where we had different view, sibling thing, but we had a difference of opinion around the honours list, actually. And we had a discussion about why don't we have more black people getting gongs? And the position that was in dispute then was they should have a certain amount of black people, and only black people could get them. I was against that at that point in time. I said, no, I don't think we should give a gong to people just because they're black. And she said, why not? And the irony is that in the 2017 list, my sister, who's 2 years older, and 2 years longer a civil servant, by the way, she works at Bears, she got an MBE. It's crazy. This year I got an OBE, and the word within the family is they'll be giving me the keys to the palace next year. But here we are. So the answer to your question for me is, reluctantly, I think there are some industries that do need to have quotas in order for it to act as a catalyst to start changing. Because my bottom line here is, you need intrinsic owners of the issue in those decision-making spaces. You wouldn't expect a room full of men to be deciding what happens to women. We wouldn't tolerate it. Nor should we. Nor should we. But it happens, right? Well, let's fix it. Let's fix it. Because we can. Osmosis one works. Yes?
I agree with the rest of the discussion you've had here. But where in what you've outlined is a place for people who are not bound?
Yeah. Well, what's your name?
Ruth.
Ruth. I if I call it up on my phone, I did a couple of emails, if I'm honest, from Jamaica. One of the messages I sent back to a member of my team, Yvonne, is that my priority for 2018, my main focus, is going to be an ally strategy I want to recruit and engage with more white colleagues on this agenda. But the truth of it is that we're not going to deliver on race equality by just having a group of black people, however intelligent, however insightful, however creative. It's just not going to happen. So I want to prioritise an ally strategy. I started speaking with one of the non-executive directors, a white woman from the Home Office. Her name is Susie Levy. She runs something called The Red Plate. She's fantastic. Fantastic because she gets it. She's not uncomfortable talking about white privilege, for example. Another thing that you'll see expanded. Can I recommend a book? A book by Renee Edo Lodge. Anyone heard of her book?
Is that the why I'm no longer talking to white people about race?
High five.
Actually, I haven't read it yet.
You haven't read it yet. You've read them in spectacles, though. Yeah. The book is called Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. It started life as a blog. I was at the book launch. Fantastic event. But the book, which I have read, which I've recommended a number of times, and I've got a vision of giving a copy to every one of our permanent secretaries. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Depending on where you're at on this journey around race equality, depending on where each of you are at, it might not be an education on every single page, but the way she articulates it, the way she gets to the rub and talks about quotas and from a UK base, not an American civil rights base. That's one of the powerful things. She's 27 years old. She speaks with like scalpel like insightfulness, and I would highly recommend that book. It's a very challenging read. I can't speak as a white person, but it's a challenging read as a black person. But it's a challenging read, and a couple of my friends who happen to be white have said the same thing. So I think there's absolutely a place. There has to be a place for white friends and white colleagues, and I would like to see an ally strategy similar to the ally strategy that's well established in the LGBTQ community, where it's not just about people who are LGBTQ, it's about people straight, it's about people coming together to decide on what happens next. My point about race, though, I don't want to lose this point. My point about race is we need to have those voices in the decision-making spaces. Did I say another question? Yes.
So I'm going to ask about quotas again. So
Yeah.
I need to understand it. So you also then, you also have quotas on disability,
Yes.
forward backgrounds,
Yes.
LGBT.
Yes. I think so. I think so. I think so. I personally think so.
I think you have to.
I think if it matters, measure it. And I think that for some parts of our workplace, for some industries, we're just not going to break through if we don't introduce quotas, is my view. It's a personal view. It's not one that you're going to see at CISREF or anywhere else necessarily printed. But I've been at conferences where there's an opposing view saying quotas is not the way forward. I have respect for that position, but I'm speaking as someone who's worked in civil service for 35 years this year. I've seen a lot of things come and go, and I personally don't think we're going to move the needle on this until we introduce quotas. That's my personal.
Can I just say that I listened to a series, it wasn't particularly about race, but it was about inequality, and it was a coaching series, Hetty Hyder. And she talked about millennials and the fact that they're coming through and they have a much broader image of the world and they are more challenging. So especially with regards to recruitment, they're now asking questions and wanting to see more evidence about what type of organisation you are and how you can evidence it before they'll even apply to that organisation for a job. So I think also, whilst we as an organisation need to be very mindful of what we're doing in our recruitment practice, there is this whole other bit about how we're perceived as an organisation by people who haven't even bothered joining us yet. So that's that external facing side as well. I
think that's absolutely spot on. I've just started looking into some of this myself personally. I think there's real hope in that. I think the last ONS census says to us that the fastest growing people group is mixed race or mixed parentage. Lots of mix in there, but the mixed parentage. I think that will absolutely change the landscape. That will change what we're walking into. I think there's an urgency about what needs to happen next for me that says quotas. That's why I say in some parts, in some industries, I think you're right. That voice, that millennium, what is coming through, and it will shape, it will colour what happens next, without doubt. Sure. I've got one question.
Okay.
So, one of it, yes.
Maybe
You went first.
Go on then, Horace.
Can I just say, fantastic, really good. I'm really pleased that I came. It's really made me think much more deeply. What I would like to see, when you have our contact details, is your reading list. You mentioned that would be very useful. I follow up some of the points you've made.
Okay, we can do that. Yeah, absolutely, Horace. Thank you. And thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, I've loved this session. It was quite excellent. Yeah. Good mentioning. My question is really to follow up on the idea of quotas.
Yes.
And I don't want to be sort of too technical.
Yes.
But how granular is it practical to make that?
Well, what's happening at the Cabinet Office, which is the author and the owner of that strategy, is that they are looking at granularity. They're absolutely sensitive to the fact that, and I was talking about this to everybody on the way up from the station, that there are some areas that are in a different position than other areas geographically in order to pull from different communities. So how granular we end up becoming, I don't really know. I'm in touch with people at the Race Disparity Union, for example, but I don't know what that next phase will look like. They'll probably give us a sneak preview when we get to the eve of issuing it. But I know that the ambition is to be to take granularity certainly to region, and I think they're drawing the map on Metropolitan Police on the police areas. So 43, 43. They're doing it. Just the template is on that basis because a lot of the work in the race disparity effort by David Larry was through the criminal justice system and policing. So that's the template they're using, but they are looking to be running it in their approach. To a regional level.
Yeah, I mean, if I was running a sort of small medium enterprise in Chippenham, road, the practicalities of being working to quotas might be to be impaired, but that's not to take away from the ambition to.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I hear that. I'll try and get more information. Wally, I don't know if you have been anyway, sorry to interrupt that flow. If you can keep Horace's point, reading this and stuff, and follow up, well, I'll make sure that stuff comes through.
Sure.
Yeah.
We, here in the council, we started our journey with this around equality. We've still got quite a long way to go, and some of the stuff that we talked about today has been really interesting and things that we can do to take forward. The civil service seems to be quite a long way ahead, but you've even said that there's still a way to go there. Do you know anywhere that does get it more than 50% right or 75% right? Have you come across any public bodies where, it works and it's okay?
Google. Public bodies, you said, yeah.
Well, any bodies really, because there's some best practice to come out of this, and ways of, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel.
No, I think it's a very good point, Liz.
Yeah.
Liz, it's a very good point, and it's one that often comes up. In terms of public bodies, if you're looking at diverse panels and creating diverse panels, for example, I would say check out DWP, Department of Work and Pensions. I've got some contacts there, I can get them through to you later. They did some fantastic work with the support and help of their Black Staff Network in order to get a greater pool of candidates. Some upskilling was required, but they did it, and it'd be good for you to check out what they did. Dare I say it, Project Race, which has now been replicated, by the way, and introduced at DEFRA. I mentioned Claire Moriarty's at PERMSEC, but what we're doing, and we can give you a whole, this was a presentation, it was 50 minutes, we can give you a whole raft of different bits and electronically get that across to you as to what we're doing and what DEFRA are now setting out on. At the Ministry of Defence, where they are deeply challenged on a number of fronts, but they too are now looking to introduce Project Race as well. They're, in parts of MOD, they remain challenged on the gender agenda, So there's lots of stuff there, but let me take that away. I'll come back in that same communication line and come back to you on that. But check out Google, and they've got a free website. Sorry, Simon. They've got a free open website. It's gone. I'll get it to you because I've just met their head of diversity for Europe, and he's doing some fantastic work, and they're literally just putting it out on the free website. But I'll get that and come back to you. Simon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in response to you talk about the investment.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a key drive for equality and diversity, or for race disparity. Because when you think about, okay, you've got a full-time role, and then you have to do a race, forum or whatever else, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now, I say this on the back of a positive action officer within the police, and joining the police a year ago, we have made strides. Small strides. For instance, when it comes to interviewing on a panel, you haven't got somebody come up and their language is not English in a sense. Yet, okay, well, he actually failed because he didn't show any empathy. But then you have a look at the culture, and if you're not looking at culture, then you intend to become biased.
Yeah.
And so therefore you need to invest.
Yeah.
And I can actually confidently say, within a year, moving from working within the police, we've actually moved our percentages by about 2% within the police within a year.
Yeah.
In minorities.
Yeah.
Visible minority I'm talking about as well.
Yeah. And are you saying that that's as a result of an increase in cultural competence?
Cultural competence,
Right.
as well as somebody driving and believing and having a passion,
Yeah.
and actually the investment in people.
Yeah.
So the investment in myself, in a sense,
Yeah.
and 3 more officers
Yeah.
in driving positive action,
Yeah.
and looking at how recruitment actually is happening,
Yeah.
and challenging.
Yeah.
Because, we must admit, when you go into the police, who wants to join the police? Because guess what? Actually, I'm black, I'm not going into the police. It's not a place for me because of racism, etc., etc. But when you build that confidence, and you not only it's about recruitment, it's about the retainment, it's about progression.
Yeah.
And so when you end up, you've got minority coming in a workplace, you need to hold them.
Yeah.
So how can you support them through their journey?
Yeah.
To make them start thinking, actually, am I good enough for this job?
Yeah.
But you're going to give them the confidence that actually, I can become the chief constable.
Yeah.
And give them that aspiration so they can aim for the higher bit.
Yeah.
But when you just recruitment and leave them alone, and then that's it, and then no matter how much they try to crawl, they put that down, then it becomes an issue.
It does.
And then what you do, you pull people back.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. That it's not just about having that forum of saying, okay, you can't advertise for just white or black or whatever. You need to have that forum that when you're recruiting, the panel reflect the organisation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
There's a consultancy out there, a recruitment agency called Green Park, run by Raj Tulsiani. Check them out, Green Park. They do a lot around cultural competence. If any of you tweet, please follow us. We're at Project Race UK, and we're cranking that up.